2, Unit 10.2 notes. Vertex form y equals a times x minus h plus k. All right, so if you remember yesterday, or Friday I should say, we had something like y equals, let's say, 2x squared, let's go plus 5. Okay? And we knew that the a value determined how skinny or wide the parabola was, right? And if it happened to be negative, it meant it opened down. If it's positive, it opens up. And we figured out, hopefully you figured out, that if there's something being added, the parabola will move up, right? And if actually something is being subtracted, the parabola would move down that many spaces, right? Does that make sense? Are you with me on this? Okay, so the only thing we're doing here is the difference between this thing we did Friday and this is we're just expanding this a little bit. We're taking it to y equals 2, but instead of just x, we're adding something or subtracting something to x. See, the only difference here is we might be adding or subtracting here to x. Does that make sense? Okay, we call this vertex form. And y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where a, h, and k are numbers either whole, fraction, or decimals. Okay, the values of a, h, and k will cause a parabola to make certain movements and or shifts. Okay, we already talked about the a value will make it skinny or fat. And this value out here, I don't know if I told you, but that's k, and it'll move it up or down, right? So hopefully you can see that the h value is going to make it move left or right. Okay, the goal of this worksheet is to help you become aware of these mathematical concepts. All right, so identifying the values of a, h, and k. Directions: fill out the chart by identifying the values of a, h, and k for each equation. Save vertex column and questions below until after you finish section B. All right, well, we're going to do it a little bit different, but that's okay. So let's take a look at this section right here. First, I just want to go through together and I want to list all the a values because you guys are really familiar with the a values. So, what is the a value for number 1? 2. And that tells you that the parabola will open up and it'll be kind of skinny, right? How about number 2? Negative 4, and that tells you it's going to open down and it's going to be very skinny. Number 3 opens up and very, very skinny. Number 4, what is it? 1. Remember, yeah, you can always have a 1 out in front, and that means it opens up and it's just your normal. That's your basic parabola there. How about number 5? Negative 3. What does that tell us about the parabola? Opens down. Is it skinny or wide? Skinny. Number 6. Negative 1. Opens up or down? Opens down, and it's neither skinny. This is just your basic parabola, right? And number 7, what's your a value? 1. Okay. Now, I think this time what I want to do is I want to jump out to k. So let's go back. Remember, k is what you're adding or subtracting to the end of the equation. Oops, right up here. K is either what you add or subtract to the equation. So number 1, what's k? Positive 3. Okay. Number 2, what is k? Positive 8. And number 3, negative 7. And number 4, what's out there? Nothing. Another word for nothing in math is 0. Number 5, 1. Number 6, negative 4. And number 7, negative 2. Okay, and if you remember from yesterday, or I should say Friday, the plus 3 means the parabola would be moving up 3 spaces. Plus 8 moving it up 8 spaces. -7 would move it down 7 spaces. 0 means that your vertex is right at the x-axis. 1 would move it up. -4 would move it down. And -2 would move it down, right? Are we all good with that? Okay. Now this is the tricky part. It's why I saved it for last. H. That's the new thing we're covering. So I want you to look at vertex form. It is y equals a times x minus h. So what I want you to realize here is that we're expecting there to be a minus sign in front of the h. We're not saying that h is negative here. We're saying that it's x minus whatever h is. So we got to be careful here. So what is h in what is h in number 1?
-5.
Nope.
X -5.
H is 5. Remember, we're expecting to be x minus h. So h is 5. What is h in number 2? It's positive 2, isn't it? Because it's x minus whatever h is, and h is 2. What is h in number 3? 5. What is h in number 4? 1. Very good. Okay, here's where it gets tricky for you. What is h in number 5? -5. -5. You can either do it literally or you can do it in your head, but in this case, we might want to rewrite this as x minus -5. And see, now we know that x minus h is -5, isn't it? Because a negative times a negative is where we get the positive. All right, number 6, what is h? -3. Guys, this is very important. It is the cause of most mistakes around these questions. Because if you want to either literally rewrite it or just do it in your head, it's x minus -3. And finally, what is h on number 7? -1. Again, either literally or figuratively rewrite it as x minus -1. Okay. Now, I've said it many times. Math teachers are not very creative when it comes to naming things. Why do we call this form of a quadratic equation vertex form?
It gives you the vertex.
Because it gives you the vertex, and it's really easy. The vertex of this equation is 5, 3. The vertex of number 2 is 2, 8. The vertex of number 3 is simply 5, -7. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? H and K are just the vertex of your quadratic function. H is the x value and K is the y value. The only thing you have to be careful of is what? What's the tricky part of this? The h value. You have to remember that this is kind of what I normally say is, however it shows up in your equation, it's always going to be the opposite. Like you look at this and a lot of you said, oh, -5. You have to know that it's the opposite of that. It's +5, +2, +5, +1, -5, -3, -1. Okay? That is the vertex. And the vertex, as you guys should know by now, is very important. It tells us what the line of symmetry is for every parabola. We know it's x equals 5, x equals 2, x equals 5, x equals 1, x equals -5, x equals -3, x equals -1. And it also tells us our domain, as long as we know whether it opens up or down. If it opens up, all reals greater than or equal to 3. If it opens up, this one opens down, so all reals less than or equal to 8. Our domain, this one opens up, so it's all reals greater than or equal to -7. You get my point. We can tell a lot about a parabola if we know the vertex. Okay? All right. So, using this information, what I'd like you to try and do is answer questions 4 through 11. Just 4 through 11 right now. I'll give you some time.